Hey guys, Miss Amanda here. I missed y'all last week, but I hope you enjoyed my video that I uploaded for y'all while I was out of town. This week I thought that we could talk about winter and talk about how cold it is in the winter, and talk about some animals that we might see in the winter time. I know that a couple of weeks ago here in Mississippi we got some snow, which we usually don't get down here, and so that was a nice surprise. And so we got to play in the snow and build the snowman and have snowball fights. Did you get to go outside and play in the snow? You did? Did you have a lot of fun? I did too. So tell me, was the snow cold or hot? Cold, right? It was very cold when you were playing with the snow. And what did you have to wear when you went outside to play in the snow? Did you wear your swimsuit? Nope. Did you wear shorts and a t-shirt? You probably wore a jacket, right, to keep you warm. You had a jacket on. What else might you have worn? What would you wear on your head to keep your head warm? A hat, good. You wore a hat on your head to keep your head warm. And what did you wear on your fingers or your hands to keep your hands warm? Gloves. We call them gloves down here, or you might call them mittens. So, gloves are where you have the fingers, but mittens look like this. So mittens have all your fingers together and just your thumb. So some of you might have mittens and some of you might have gloves. But they're both used to keep your hands warm when it's cold outside. And so today we're going to read about the mitten, which is this. And all these animals are going to try and fit in the mitten because they are cold outside. So we're going to read our book, The Mitten. We're going to talk about our book. Then we're going to make our own book that I'm going to have linked to our Google Classroom. And so we'll make our own book, The Mitten. And then when we're finished making our own book, then we are going to talk a little bit about sequencing. So you're going to help me remember who went in the glove first. And we're going to glue each animal in the glove in the order that they went into the glove, or the mitten. Remember, gloves are with all your fingers, and then the mittens hold your fingers together. Alright, so let's get started. Here's our book, The Mitten, and it is written by Jan Brett. That is our author, Jan Brett. And she also illustrated it. So she's the author and the illustrator. And this says it's actually a Ukrainian folk tale. So that is a story that's been handed down through generations and generations. So it's an old, old story that used to be told to people. And this lady made it into a book from the Ukraine, a country a little ways from here. Alright, so here we go. The Mitten. Once there was a boy. This boy was named Nicky, and he wanted mittens white as snow. Who is our story about? Is our story about a boy or a girl? It's about a boy. Very good. And what did this boy want? Remember, what did it say he wanted? He wanted mittens. And what color did he want his mittens? Do you remember? Let me read it again. It says he wanted mittens as white as snow. So what color did he want his mittens? White. Just like the snow. Remember when it snowed here, how white the snow was? That's what color he wants his mittens. If you drop a white mitten in the snow, it will be hard to find, his grandmother told him. But Nicky wanted snow white mittens so much that Baba made them for him. You know who Baba is? Baba is the name that he calls his grandma. What do you call your grandma? Those are good names. I call my grandma my mamaw. All right, so Nikki wants these white gloves, and he asks his Baba, his grandma, to make them for her. And she says, but if you drop them, then they'd be hard to find because the snow is white and the mittens are white. But he really wants white mittens. So she says, okay. When she finished knitting, Nikki put on the mittens and went out to play. See him playing outside? But it wasn't long before one mitten fell off. You see it? Can barely see it in the snow right there because they're both what color? White. They're both white. That is how they are the same, because the mitten and the snow are both white, so it's very hard to see it because they are the same color. A little mole found the mitten and crawled inside. It was just the right size, so he decided to stay. You want to see what a mole looks like? Here is the mole right here. And he's cold, so he decides he's going to climb into this mitten. So our mole is the first animal that goes into the mitten. What do you think the next animal is going to be? You think it's going to be a bunny rabbit? Let's see. A rabbit came hopping by, and he wiggled in next to the mole. See him trying to get in the mitten next to the mole? Trying to squeeze in that mitten. All right. Do you think another animal's going to try and come by? Yes, can you see that animal? Let's see what kind of animal that is. That's a different looking animal, isn't it? You know what he's called? He is a hedgehog. Yes, a hedgehog wanted to get warm. The mole and the rabbit made room for him. So now we've got the mole in the back. Remember, the mole was the first animal. Then the rabbit. And now the hedgehog. So how many animals are inside of our mitten? Good guess. Let's count them. We've got 1, the mole, 2, the rabbit, and 3, the hedgehog. So how many animals are inside of our mitten? 3. There are 3 animals inside of the mitten. And who is coming up next? That is a bird. Do you know what kind of bird that is? He says, hoo, hoo. What kind of bird says, hoo, hoo? It is an owl. You are right. Good job. The owl didn't want to be left out, so the mole, the rabbit, and the hedgehog had to move over. The little mitten was getting crowded now. And look at the mitten. What's happening to the mitten? It's getting bigger. That's right. It's no longer small like to fit your hand. It's getting bigger and bigger. Why is it getting bigger? Because all the animals are in there stretching it out. So you've got the mole came first, then the rabbit, then the hedgehog, and now the owl. So how many is that? How many fingers am I holding up? Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 animals getting inside of the mitten now. Do you think another animal is going to fit? Look at that one with black and white stripes. Do you know what he's called? You're right, raccoons do have black and white on them, but it's not a raccoon. This animal is called a badger. A badger looked out of his house and saw the mitten. So he climbed right in. So now we have a mole, rabbit, hedgehog, owl, and a badger. How many are in this mitten now? 5. Very good counting. You're right. There are 5 animals in the mitten. And look how big our mitten is getting now. It doesn't look like we're done yet. What animal is coming next? Who said it? Somebody said a fox. You're right. Say that one with me. Let's bite your lip and say fox. Good job. All right, the fox is coming next. Oh, it started to snow. So a fox pushed his way in and made himself right at home. Look at that mitten. Does it even look like a mitten anymore? No, it is so big. Now we have 6 animals in there. We have the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, the badger, and now the fox. And it looks like there's still another animal coming. Oh, no, what is that? A bear. Is a bear a little animal or a big animal? Yeah, he's very big. He's a big animal. Do you think he's going to fit in this mitten? Something that fits on your hand? Do you think a bear can fit in that? I don't know. I don't think so. Let's see. It says the big bear sniffed at the mitten. The animals were packed in tight, but the bear didn't care. He crawled in anyway, and the mitten was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So he did fit. Now what animal is coming? You're right, it's a little mouse. And look at the mouse. We said the bear was big, but what about the mouse? Is the mouse big? Nope. Is the mouse small? Yes, the mouse is small, but he's going to try and fit in with all those animals there. It says, then a tiny mouse squeezed in. And where did she sit? Where is that mouse? On the bear's nose. You're right. The mouse is sitting right here on the bear's nose. So now how many animals do we have inside the mitten? Let's count them. You ready? All right, first we had, do you remember? First we had the mole, and then the rabbit, and then the hedgehog, and then the owl, and then we had, after the owl we had a badger, right? And then we had a fox, and then we have the bear, and then who was the last animal to get in? The mouse, right? So let's count how many that is. Are you ready? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 animals in our mitten. Oh my goodness, that is a lot of animals in our mitten. And now look how big that mitten is. But who's coming now? The boy, our friend Nicky. What do you think he's looking for? Yeah, he's probably looking for his lost mitten. You're right. All right, let's see what happens. It says, the mouse's whiskers tickled the bear's nose. Achoo! The bear sneezed. And what happened? All of the animals flew out of the mitten when the bear sneezed. And they all went everywhere. And Nicky saw his mitten flying in the air. There it is, because when the bear sneezed, the animals went everywhere and the mitten went flying. So Nicky's going to catch his mitten. It says, from the window, Baba watched Nicky catch his mittens. See, Baba, he called to her, I have both my mittens. And Baba just smiled. Right, because she was worried he was going to lose it because it's white. The snow is white. And he did lose it for a little while. But then he found it flying in the air. Why was his mitten flying in the air? Yeah, because the bear sneezed, and when the bear sneezed, it all went everywhere. And look at the animals now. Where are they going? Those animals and those animals. They're going back into their homes. That's right, because they don't live in a mitten. So they're going back to their home. The end. But look at his two mittens. Look. There's one mitten that fits his hand. And there's the mitten that all the animals were in. What happened to it? It's big. You're right. It got stretched out because of all the animals. And the grandma's not sure how it got stretched out. But we know that all the animals got in and made it big, big, big until they all flew out. So, we'll cut my light back on. And the light came off. There we go. And now we're going to make our own book so that we can tell people the story of the mitten. And then we're going to clue our animals in our own mitten. So first you're going to get somebody to print out your book for you. And then you're going to take some scissors, or you're going to get your aunt or uncle, or brother or sister, older brother, older sister, somebody to cut right down the middle. And if y'all want to practice with scissors and your mama and daddy or somebody's okay with it, you can do that too. Alright, so we'll start with the cover. We'll start with the cover of our book. So it's got all the animals in it, and your cover should say the mitten, and it should tell you Jamie Mayos is the one who created this book for us. So that is your cover page. So everybody find your cover page. Good. Once you got your cover page, then we got to find that first animal that went in. Do you remember what the first animal was that went in? Was it the mole or the hedgehog? Which one went first? Do you remember? Give you a hint. It starts with a sound. Does that sound like the badger or the mole? The mole. You're right. Very good. So you're going to put the mole right behind your cover sheet. Okay? Alright, so we've got the cover sheet, the cover, the title of your book. We've got the mole went first. Who went next? Was it the rabbit or the hedgehog? Who thinks it was the rabbit? Raise your hand if you think it was the rabbit. Okay, raise your hand if you think it was the hedgehog. The rabbit is right. The rabbit was next. So you had the mole. Then you can put the rabbit behind the mole. And then it was our hedgehog, right? With all his hair. Got our hedgehog. So your book should look like this, with the mole, the rabbit, and then the hedgehog. The mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog. Then what was next? What was the fourth animal? Do you remember? Let's look back in our book to help us remember. Sometimes it's good to look back in your book. Make sure you remember. So we've got the mole. We've got the rabbit. We've got the hedgehog. And then, what animal was next? The owl. Very good. The owl came next. So you're going to put the owl next in your book. And then, remember our black and white friend, the badger, was next. So find your badger. Has a little stripe on his face. And he'll go next. Alright, we got 3 animals left. We have a fox, a bear, and a mouse. Who can remember our next animal? Well, we know our mouse is last, because he's the one that got on the bear's nose and made him sneeze. So, it's either the fox or the bear. Which one do you think came next? The fox or the bear? The fox. You're right. Comes the fox. So that means who was next? The bear. Very good. And who was last in our mitten? The mouse was last in our mitten. All right, that's got your book and your animals all in order. And then look, the very last page of your book is the mitten with all the animals in it. Just like your title page. But instead of having the title on it, it has our last sentence. It says, animals, animals in the mitten. So you can put that last. You got your book all together. And then you're going to have somebody use some tape or a stapler. And you're going to put your book together. And then you can color your book. And then you can read your book. So you've got the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, the badger, the fox, the bear, and then the mouse to help you remember your book. Alright, and now that you've got that finished, we are going to glue our animals in the mitten. So you're going to have somebody cut these animals out for you. Alright, so cut them out real quick. And use your book to tell me who was the first animal in the mitten. Who came first? Look back in your book and tell me, was the mole first or the mouse? You are so right. The mole was first. So you're going to find your mole from your cutout. You might have to have somebody help you because he looks a little bit like a mouse, but he's not a mouse. Here's our mole. Alright, and you're going to take your mole and you can glue him anywhere you want in the mitten. But he came first, so I'm going to glue mine in the back of the mitten because he crawled all the way in the mitten. So I'm going to put my mole, there he is, in the back of my mitten. He crawled inside the mitten. And there he is. Alright, look at your book again that we made. And tell me who came next after the mole. Was it the badger or the rabbit? Who said rabbit? Did you say rabbit? Rabbit is right. If you looked at your book, the rabbit was the next animal in the mitten. So I'm going to glue my rabbit here next to the mole, because he was next in line. Alright. Now we're looking in our book again. We see the mole. We see the rabbit. Who can tell me the next animal? Look in your book. He's got lots of spikes. Do you know what he's called? Not a porcupine. He's a hedgehog. Our hedgehog is next. And I am going to glue him next to the mole and the rabbit. So now I have my mole, my rabbit, and my hedgehog. Who knows what animal was next? Look in your book. Flip the page. You have the mole, the hedgehog, the rabbit, and then who was next? The owl. You're right. Good job. The owl is next. What does an owl say? Hoo, hoo. You're right. Good job. Alright, there's my owl. He is next in the mitten. So you have the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl. Then what animal is next? Flip back in your book. After the owl was, you're right, that black and white animal. Do you remember what his name was? He's a badger. Very good. We're going to take the badger. Remember, he has the stripe on his face. And I'm going to put the badger in the mitten next. So next is the badger. We're squeezing all in here. All right, we got 3 animals left. The fox, the bear, and the mouse. And we know the mouse was the last. So look in your book and tell me, is the fox next or the bear? Good looking in your book. It is the fox. You're right. So we are going to cut the fox out and glue him into the mitten with his friends. There he is. All right. So what was our big animal that got into the mitten? Who comes after the fox? He's the biggest animal that was in there. A bear. You're right. A big bear. So you're going to cut your bear out right here and glue him into the mitten. There is my bear. And we have all these animals in here. We've got the mole and the rabbit and the hedgehog and the owl and the badger and the fox and the bear. And who's missing? The last animal to get into our mitten was the mouse, right? And who can tell me in our book, do you remember where the mouse was when he got into the mitten? Where did he sit? He sat on somebody's nose, right? Whose nose did he sit on? The bear. That's right. So I'm going to glue my mouse on my bear's nose. There he is. And he sat on the bear's nose, and what happened? It made the bear what? Sneeze. Yes. And then what happened? So the bear sneezed, and the animals went flying. That's right. They flew out of the mitten, and the mitten flew up in the air, and the little boy found his mitten again so that he could have it. And that is the end of our story, the end of the mitten. I hope you had fun reading about the mitten and then making our own book and then making our own mitten. All right, and I will see y'all next week. Bye, guys.